So Donald Trump's triumphal arc continues to fascinate me. I think I read that he's going to be starting this in a couple months. And everybody's ripping on it, but no, to me, I found it to have a lot of significance because of Alcoholics Anonymous. See, Alcoholics Anonymous was created in America. God continued his healing and revelation through AA. I know it's for addiction and alcoholics, but again, it started in, I think it's the big book started being sold in 1939. And once it started being sold, 30 million copies were bought. AA is now in 180 countries. It quickly went into every country too, if you look into it. Yet the big book, in 2012, the Library of Congress selected the big book as one of the 88 books that shaped America for its role in pioneering the 12-step movement and aiding millions in sobriety. And then Time magazine in 2011 included it among the 100 most influential English language books since 1923. With over 37 million copies sold and translated into 43 languages, it ranks among the best-selling books ever written because it's God-inspired. So even though all the Christian denominations decided, well, the Bible's closed, there's no more revealing going on, that's the reason God didn't set up AA in your churches. Yet early on, all of the churches were attacking AA because of the language they used. Higher power. Yeah, but Bill Wilson wanted to keep it open to, everyone so all could have help. There's only one God that's saving people from the spirits of alcohol and addiction, okay? It's as simple as that. But the churches wanted to complicate it, and you're not using the word Jesus. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they can take that up with God one day. So, what's interesting about the Triumphal Arc is that Bill Wilson wrote about, the spiritual recovery being like an ark and relating the steps to it, and this is in the Bible as well, the cornerstone and, God building. And that's really what takes place. In order for God to build you into his image, you have to start with surrender. And that's why I know it so well, is because this isn't the big book, but this is the 12 steps and 12 traditions. Each step is very short, but these steps, especially 2, 3, and 11, those were always my favorite steps. So we would read the steps because they're short, and then we'd go around the room, and we would talk about our experience, strength, and what our hope, and what God did for us. And I think that's really what God wanted. That was worship for him. Even though we didn't talk about the Bible, we knew it was God. We weren't arguing about, what God. It was because there's only one God that's going to do that. Yet God did that here in America. And I've said that in the Bible, in the book of Revelation, the letter to the Church of Philadelphia is to America. I know none of the churches say that, but they don't know God either. Just don't. God talks in that letter to Philadelphia that I'm going to put a pillar down. Well, I think in 1939, God used Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob, who were the founders of Alcoholics Anonymous, as metaphorically putting that pillar down. Because this is why I'm saying this, relating it back to Trump. I'm not saying this is the reason, it's what I find fascinating. Because Bill Wilson, co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, used the ark imagery metaphorically in AA literature to describe spiritual recovery. In discussions of step 5, which is after you write down you got to do the thorough moral inventory. You have to admit your wrongs to God, to another human being, and yourself. He likened this process to building an ark. through admitting and amends, creating a triumphant arc through which we will walk to freedom. And yet Trump is creating literally the triumphal arc. So it's interesting. What's even more interesting is so many people over the past 8 years looking into things have attacked Rockefeller Jr., the Rockefeller family. And Bill Wilson, and I think it was Dr. Bob was with him, but definitely Bill Wilson, he lived in Ohio, him and his wife Lois, but he had went to some big, millionaire party when he was first, after he had wrote the big book. And the part he wrote is the first 149 pages. The rest of the big book is the big blue one, is all these inspired stories. And even to this, and they've only changed the book, had 3 other editions since then. So they haven't changed it a whole lot. But when they change it, they still keep the 149 pages in there. They just change the stories to update them. Yet there's, it's still heavily bought. This was the book that, that breaks down each step. But there's a letter to the family and to the doctors, and that's what the first, I think it's 149 pages, the first 149 pages. So, but he went to Rockefeller, some big fancy millionaire party in New York, looking for help to get this off the ground. But Rockefeller said no. He said, I don't want to give you a big donation. And everybody at the party, he said, don't give any big donation. And the reason being is he warned Bill Wilson, don't ever let anybody come in and give you a big contribution, because they'll control it and you have something special here. Even Rockefeller recognized that. But he still did help him. He just didn't give him a big lump of money. Instead, the next day he went out and bought 400 copies of the big book and started handing them out. And then I think for the first couple months, he kept Bill Wilson and his wife Lois afloat by paying their mortgage until this got off the ground. AA to this day is absolutely self-supporting. It doesn't get money. It doesn't, and in the 12 traditions, okay, Bill W. put in here, and Dr. Bob obviously, that AA will not accept outside contributions because of what Rockefeller said. It doesn't state that that's why, but clearly, because Rockefeller told him that if you take a big outside contribution, you'll have somebody come in and control it and ruin it. So he helped him, but he didn't give him a big lump of money. So whatever you want to think of Rockefeller, to me, God bless him for that, okay? Because, I mean, I wouldn't be alive today. I wouldn't. The churches weren't going to help. They barely know God as it is. Okay, yet that's where I saw all the miracles take place. I did. All the time. It would be amazing to watch somebody come in their first day, and they're just, that feeling. You can see it on their face and their body, and they have the trembling hands, at the table, and they usually just say, I'm new, I'm just going to listen, and because that's all I did for the first year was listen. I didn't want to talk. But you slowly watch this transformation take place that God is doing. And that's all that's what we do. And yet the science has attacked AA, because as a nurse, I've gone in and searched out all the different bullshit articles they write about AA. We can't get a good understanding. We really can't say if it's successful. Well, the science is so stupid and closed-minded. They can't get a clue that something that's been around for 90 years and that's in 180 countries and fully self-supporting, that should be enough if you're a smart person to recognize that clearly they're doing something you can't. I just think the science hates it because, they make everything that, it's not God. Well, no, in there it is God. See, the reason they put higher power was because you have atheists that are alcoholics and agnostics. And they didn't want it to be that you can't get healing because of, we didn't say Jesus. And I think Jesus absolutely supports it because Jesus started it here. And that healing has continued to go on to heal people in 180 countries. God's continuing miraculous work through the triumphal arc.